Let me start by saying that I never wanted to be the gay pastor. I never wanted to stand out. But here I am, standing in front of you in all of my gay pastoral glory. But I wasn't always open about my sexual orientation. It wasn't until one night in 2012, I was standing outside, locked in deep conversation with God. I had just finished my first semester of seminary, where I was training to become an ordained member of clergy. And at that point, I had spent 10 long, shame and fear-filled years in the closet. And I was at my breaking point. I wasn't asking God if I was gay. I knew that I was. And I wasn't asking God for forgiveness. I wasn't asking to be spared from the hell that I had been taught I would go to just for being gay. I can remember this moment so clearly. I looked up at the sky, through the stars to the great beyond, and I asked God to kill me. It was not the first time that I had considered suicide while in the closet, but it was the first time that I had tried to solicit God as an accomplice. And I was so earnest in my request, so entrenched in my belief of God as all-powerful that I actually asked for a lightning bolt. I asked God to send a lightning bolt from above and strike me dead then and there. And I even closed my eyes and waited. And when I opened my eyes and realized that I was still alive, I took that as permission from God. Permission to not only come out, but to also continue to lean into my call into ministry. 7 years later, here I am, and I'm still coming out. I come out to new classes that I teach, to new members at church or new friends, or to TED Talk audiences. Coming out is joyful and fearful and exhilarating and exhausting. I have since been ordained as openly gay. I have both been granted and denied employment as openly gay. And I continue to be systematically judged by faith leaders and secular folks alike, all while trying to make sense of the painful, exclusive, yet well-meaning theology of my childhood. A theology that taught me that despite being told that God loved us all, each and every one, that really what we were learning is that God had conditional love. Because when we put stipulations on love or acceptance, then that is conditional. Because what we're saying is that we love you only up to a certain point. I had been taught to hide my identity, and I had been taught that hiding that identity was worth whatever pain I endured in order to maintain the love and support of people around me, and most importantly in my life, to maintain the love of God. I had been taught that the violence of silence was worth enduring, even if it meant secretly wishing that God would just kill me already. I wish I could tell you that now that I've come out, it's all better now. I wish I could tell you that there is nothing but jubilee at the end of the rainbow, but the reality is, I'm not even sure there is an end to the rainbow. And I think this is because I am more than just a gay person. Despite how society continues to try and situate me in our larger community. I cannot tell you how many times I will have someone come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to learn everything there is to know about the LGBTQ+ community. Will you teach me because you're gay?" Or how many times I have encountered people who are angry and scared because the theology they have learned is being pushed against, and they really want someone to blame for pushing what they call the gay agenda onto the church. And so they say, let's blame Caitlin because she had the audacity to be ordained as openly gay. But I, like all of you, am a dynamic, complex human being, and I am more than one identity marker. Because here's the deal, I am gay, but I am also a member of clergy. I'm a female cisgender person. I am a proud cat lady. I also have post-traumatic stress disorder due to childhood trauma. I consider myself to be a critical theorist and a practical theologian and a self-professed, undefeated Boggle champion. And I am all of these things all at once, all of the time. And it seems like a simple enough concept to just let people walk through the world being exactly who they are at all times. And yet, I cannot tell you how many times I am asked to keep a part of my identity hidden. The times in which I am asked to make sure I'm not being too flamboyant about my sexual orientation. And the times that I'm asked to make sure and not be so feminist in this space. And the times I am asked simply to just walk into a space as anything less than my whole self. And here's the thing. Most of the time when I hear this, it is from people who consider themselves to be extraordinarily inclusive. But what I'm realizing is that this term inclusive is actually often misunderstood with the term tolerance. And I love what scholar Suzanne Walters has to say about tolerance, because she says that tolerance is really rooted in wrongness. It's rooted in this idea that we tolerate what we think we shouldn't have to. Like how we tolerate traffic during rush hour for the luxury of driving a car. Or how we tolerate long lines at the grocery store before a snow day so that we can make sure our homes are stocked. But here's the thing. I am not something to be tolerated. I am meant to be celebrated like each and every one of you for my whole, authentic self. There are times when we are navigating through these identities where it is possible that we have no idea what we are asking people to do, what we are asking them to navigate through. And as we consider this concept of navigation, I encourage us to consider the framework of intersectionality, a framework that was first coined by scholar and activist Kimberly Crenshaw in the 1980s. She coined this term to try and help people understand the intersection of what it means to be both female and a person of color. Because what she suggests is that females experience their own sense of discrimination and marginalization in this world. And so do people of color. And for women of color, that creates a layered intersection. Intersectionality is a tool that can help us understand our layers and the layers of those around us. Because if we can seek to understand people in authentic ways, it might allow us to transition away from that societally constructed box. You know the box I'm talking about. The box that says we have to be the right gender, or the right race, or the right sexual orientation, or the right gender identity, or the right socioeconomic status, or the right education level, and so on. That box that people try so desperately to fit us into, or that they try to fit into themselves. But let me tell you something, that box is traumatizing. It is traumatizing when you don't fit into that box. And that trauma leaves an impact, like the trauma for a young girl standing outside who thinks that best case scenario, God should just kill her already, rather than to come out and step outside of that societally constructed box. I don't believe that intersectionality can be fully embraced or understood unless we also embrace and understand that trauma. Because trauma leaves a lasting imprint. Trauma-informed care is a framework that was also coined in the 1980s to try and help specialists understand how to engage and interact with people who've experienced trauma throughout their lives. Like the trauma of being told what bathroom they can or cannot use. The trauma of being told what God they can or cannot pray to. Or the trauma of being told how you have to walk down the street and whether or not you can listen to your headphones. That kind of trauma. And as I have been able to understand both intersectionality and trauma-informed care, it has shaped how I engage in the classroom and in the larger community, because here's the thing. It blows my mind, the level at which we are expecting people to perform at. It blows my mind that we are expecting people to perform at peak level when we have asked them to walk into the room as a fraction of their whole selves. Why do we do this? I do believe that for the most part, people want to be genuinely inclusive. I believe that about our community. But we will never have full inclusion as long as we continue to operate using tolerance instead. We will never have full inclusion as long as we continue to ask ourselves and others to walk into a space with a hole missing. We will never know full inclusion as long as we continue to traumatize people before they ever make it into our room. Full inclusion happens when we get rid of tolerance, when we allow people to walk into a space as their whole selves, because that is the art of humanizing. Today, I will leave you with a charge, and it is up to you whether you take up the task. Will you join me in honoring the intersections of someone's life and of your own? Will you join me in dismantling that traumatizing, societally constructed box that no one fits in? And will you join me in allowing yourselves and others to walk into a space as their whole, authentic selves? It is my genuine hope that we do. Thank you.